All right. Saturday, March 23rd, exactly 1 week post Mixed Doubles HYROX Houston.
We
How'd
were
we do?
we were gonna do this recap the night after, and then the week got in our way. So crazy week after the race. I was in Houston again for work, but we did really well. The race was tons of fun. So break it down.
Let's start with how do you define well?
We had fun. That's how I define it. When people say how did it go and I say it went well, to me that means nobody got injured. We had a blast out there and we performed up to what we believe our abilities were.
We ran a 104:36.
I don't know.
Don't quote me on that. It's 104 something, which is about a minute and I think 40 seconds better than our previous time.
So for perspective, what is your time when you're doing it by yourself?
2 weeks prior to what we just did, I ran a 110. So,
Okay, so I helped you go 6 minutes faster.
yes.
So I feel like that's good for me.
But in
At least I
terms
didn't
of
get you a 110 again.
you asked, like, I asked you what well means. When I think about racing, especially if you are somebody that is doing this really part-time and maybe as a hobby rather than you're trying to make money from it or be a professional at it, there's a lot of other things going on in your life. So when you're talking about doing well,
Yeah, given the circumstances.
you don't want to wreck the rest of your life by shooting for the
Well, the other
stars.
thing is,
Let me finish.
oh, sorry.
Shooting for the stars in these races, and if you like injure yourself and then you can't perform in other areas of your life. So when we're thinking of performance when we're racing, Erin and I are both thinking about how do we perform in our day-to-day life at a maximum, but how do these races help with that? And I think this race was the epitome of, you could tell at the very end when we're crossing the finish line, we're literally like, we first of all, we're sprinting towards the finish, which for a lot of people, I don't think is the case at the end of a high rock. And then second, like we're like laughing and having fun at the very end. And that to me just shows, and we ran a great time. Like considering we're still able to feel like that, that's what, in my eyes, what well
Yeah, that's what I meant.
is
I
embodied.
also think, like, I didn't really train for it. So I feel like for me, the recap is I'm proud of myself for performing that well after I just came off of a running season. So being able to keep up in the strength department was pretty cool to see. Again, it kind of makes me think, what could I do if I actually trained specific for the race? But I don't know that I want to put that time into it right now because we just said, like, we're doing this for fun. Like, we're not trying to be in the elite 15. We're not trying to win necessarily. So as long as we just keep getting better every time, that's what it's about for us. So
And I think that's why we're even recording this is I want to get more people out there that are doing these things to improve themselves as individuals and as couples, not necessarily having the pressure to feel like they have to perform from a time base in a certain
yeah,
way.
like it shouldn't be intimidating. It can be really intimidating. I remember the first time I watched a High Rocks, I thought it was something I would never do, or if I did, it was going to be, you know, in the distant future because it just wasn't how I ever trained. And now, having done several of the races, I do want to spread that message that it's really all about people just showing up from all different levels of fitness, all different walks of life, different age groups, and really just being there to put it all on the line and push themselves to do something that's uncomfortable. And you realize it's not about the time, it's just pushing yourself to keep going. And then feels miserable in the moment, but really good when you're done because you're like, wow, I persevered through that. So I think anyone who's done a race can understand that feeling.
What do you think we did better from November's race until March's race?
I think it went better because we had done it in November as a partner, so we knew, like, first of all, how mixed doubles goes. So the race we did in November was the first time I ever did mixed doubles. So it was kind of like a learning experience to figure out, okay, how do we want to transition the weights during the different exercises? So I think our communication was probably a little bit better. Was I better at motivating you? You said I sucked in November.
I didn't I didn't say you sucked. I said you got to work on your motivation. I think for you, it's more, I could tell when you're trying to motivate, you're trying to think of what you should say when you're motivating rather than
It
just
reminds me of when I was a group
laying
fitness
into me.
instructor. Like, it's not my strong suit to I'm so intense when I work out that I don't need somebody to be like, let's go, Erin. I really could just tune it out and still be fine. So I remember when I was teaching group fitness, I had to actively think what would be motivating to somebody right now. And so you're right. That's kind of what I was like, all right, CJ, you got less than 500 meters to go. Like, what? So I'm trying, but I don't know what you want to hear.
I think it's, as a group fitness instructor, it's much tougher than when it's an individual. So
Why?
because group fitness is just like you're going to cater to the room rather than cater to an individual. So when you're in group fitness, you literally can almost cater to yourself, and then you're going to attract a group that likes who you are. But when it's the individual, you think in their mind, like, what is this person going to like? Do they want to be told a story? Do they want me to just scream at them? Do they have a specific thing that I could say to them that's going to trigger something in them? So when it's an individual, it's a little bit different than a group. And that's where, like, for me, we'll put you in a hot seat right here. It's like, what do you think motivates somebody like me?
Like David Goggins style.
Besides that, if from you, like, what could you talk about in our life that would be motivating to me?
Aiden.
Okay, what else? That's a great one.
I don't know. I feel like I'm being quizzed.
That's fine. Think on the spot. Like, come on.
I don't know. I feel like your motivation when I think to how you guys did the ultra, you were motivated by the people who said you can't do it, or who you used to be, or maybe scrawny CJ that was a little squirrel.
Yeah, so literally you could be like, remember who you were 5 years ago. Remember those.
Remember who you were when you were a little wimpy shrimp.
But also
I remember.
Who do you want to become?
Who do you want to become? Yeah, like David Goggins.
Picture the guy that you want to become and the pain it's going to take to get there. So you're starting to see things that you could say to me.
Okay.
Now, the good thing is, this is an area that I feel like I'm strong at. So can
I tell you what was helpful for me when what you did?
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to.
Yeah.
So this is one area that I feel like I have a strength in, but
so for me, what I wanted to hear, so my love language is words of affirmation. I like to be told okay, you're doing the right thing, good job, whatever. So whenever you were let's say when I was on the row and I was rowing, when you would say that's a great pace, keep it up, that was motivating to me, because in my mind I'm okay, I'm not doing so bad. So anytime you were reaffirming that I'm doing okay, that was great.
I think that's the beauty of it, though, is, did you trust that I was telling you the truth with that?
No.
Why?
Because I thought you were just doing it to make me feel better.
A great coach, if you weren't at a great pace, what would I have said?
Probably, come on, Erin, you could do a little better than this.
No, because on the row, I did say, what did I say specifically? You start
shoot for under 2:10.
Yeah, so as soon as you get close to a pace where I'm all right, we need to pick it up, how did I communicate?
Yeah, you're just hold 2:10, hold under 2:10, that was helpful. And then what you also did that was motivating was when we were going to the wall balls. So for perspective, in the November race, I completely messed up on the wall balls. I tried to take over for you, and the ball was so sweaty and heavy that I just dropped it, and it was not a problem. It was not a proud moment, and he got mad, and I was flustered, and I felt like I messed up the race. So that was not great. But this time we're running into, so you do your last 3 laps before going into the last exercise, which is the wall balls. It's 100 wall balls with 20 pounds?
14.
14 pounds. And we were planning to split it up. I thought he would do most of it. And to my surprise, we're running right through like the zone to get to the wall balls. And he's like, all right, you're going to start this. You're going to do 20 unbroken. And isn't that what you said? 20? And I was like, in my mind, I was like, oh crap. Like I wasn't planning and hardly doing any of these. And
So for even more perspective, in November I did basically 75 unbroken. So
and then I messed up.
and I can during a doubles I can for sure do 100 unbroken, but the goal is to be a team and to challenge each other to do better. So if we have to shave a couple seconds so Erin could get some, great. But in this race, knowing that we struggled in November at this, I wanted her to essentially like, if you fail at something, instead of running away from it, you need to run towards it and do the thing again. So that's where,
Yeah.
like,
So in my
I didn't even
mind,
tell her this before the race.
yeah, we had no
Through the
plan.
wall ball zone. I'm like, you're gonna start this off because I started last time, did 70 straight. I'm like,
I
you're gonna
literally said, I don't know if I can. And you're like, of course you can. And then I did. And that was like, as I was doing it, I was like, that was really an awesome moment because that was a perfect example of you just like instilling the confidence in me and then me like mentally being like, all right, like what's there to lose? I can just try. And then it's like, this is not that serious. But then I did it. And that was really cool because in my mind, like going into this race and leading up to it, I like had in my mind, I suck at wall balls, and I did it right. All right.
you did
And,
better on that. And she didn't just do the 20. So I think I did probably like 50 straight. So we were at like 70.
and then I had to
Then
do
you did,
another
I
like
think you did
15.
10 to 15, and then I did last 15.
Yeah, which was I mean that was awesome. And then the other thing that you did different was, which I wasn't expecting, was you let me do a lot more of the every exercise. So
Yeah, in November you didn't touch farmer's carry. I did the whole thing, and then this time you did a little bit. And for reference, we technically did a slower farmer's carry and slower wall balls this time around when we were trading. Um, but then it goes back to the whole like holistic performance. That hurt me, I think, in the last race by doing the entire farmer's carry and handling the load on the wall balls and a lot of other stuff. I had to output a lot more, and for my life, my back was fucked up after that race. Like, so that was just a sign where I'd pushed it, I think, a little bit too hard when I shouldn't have. Versus this race, like we came out feeling great. But besides the farmers carrying wall balls, where else do you feel like
I definitely felt really good on the sleds, which again is another improvement for perspective. What was it, 3 years ago when I competed in the women's pro? It took me so long. I should probably look up my times, but I could barely move the sled. So this time it was moving quickly, I'd say. Like I was right up there with anybody else that was on our wave. So I felt very good about the strength gains that I made on sleds for the men's weight. And then where else? Not a great rower. Neither are you.
It's okay.
Lunges we did really well, and burpees.
Yeah, those are definitely our strengths. And that's the thing about these races is you almost have to shoot to be steady on the things you're not necessarily good at, and then on the things you're great at, you have to just hammer.
Yeah.
And
if you're trying to go for like a faster time. And then the other thing I think we did well was it can be really tempting to start off going really fast with the laps for the first kilometer. That's what everyone pretty much does, but we held back a little bit to preserve endurance. And then even throughout the race, like we just kept a steady pace and kept reminding ourselves like this is no one else's race but ours. Like stop, don't pay attention to anyone else that like we're competing against. Doesn't matter.
What did I specifically say?
Run our race, I think is what you said. So yeah, that was a cool moment. And then I think what I liked most about it, and this is just a reflection that I had when I was on the course and then afterwards, it was like an hour of in the zone time where like literally you can't think about anything else. Sometimes when I'm on long runs or I'm training for endurance race, like a half marathon or like my recent marathon, you have time to think about all these other things. So even though I used running as an escape from my endless to-do list and all the projects I have going on, I would still think about it while I was running. But this is a race that's so intense that it felt awesome to just like not even have the ability to think about anything except just like gunning it and getting to the next workout and getting through it and like strategizing. Like I remember going around the laps and being like, okay, where's the entrance to the next thing? Okay, this is what we're gonna do. And like I saw a lot of people, you could tell it was their first time because they would go in the inn and they'd be like, where's the thing? They're like, so did you see the person hop the,
Yeah.
that was ridiculous. He was like, yo, hop the fence. And everybody was like, what is going on? It's not that serious.
He didn't know that, like, if you hop the fence, it doesn't trigger the in thing.
Yeah, so he probably
There's
got
like a thing
such
on
a
the end, so
penalty. I was like, whoa, that was like not that serious.
the thing about it is like it's almost painful to think about things. Like if you're trying to think about stuff during the race, like it almost uses more energy versus what I try to do is literally not think at all. Like that's how I go faster. I'm literally just like once I get into the pain cave, I'm literally just trying to be as much of a robot as possible and just like go all into whatever the next thing is and understand. I think one of the things that we do well as a team. You already mentioned kind of like we keep a steady pace, but we also are calculating when we can throttle it just a little bit. And I think for a lot of new HYROX racers out there, that's the biggest learning curve of this. Cause like one of our buddies who raced this for his second singles, it was second time doing the race in singles, and he did 15 minutes worse. And he did worse because he tried to push way too hard on the sleds and literally like his quad cramped and they started
Oh.
seeing stars. And that'll happen if you like throttle too much and you don't have that sustainability. So one of the things I think that a lot of these races will not only teach you during the race, but in life, it's understanding when to really push it and then when to find that groove. Because if you just find that groove, in my mind, like that's just comfortability. Like you're just going to get the same time every time, pretty much, or you're only going to make incremental improvements versus like leaps and bounds. And one could say that, okay, you only did a minute and a half better this time, that's only incremental. But again, in my mind, like you can't quantify like how you feel doing that certain time. Like I felt so much better doing a 104.
Yeah, like if we
than
got
I
the
did
same
doing
exact
106.
time that felt the way we felt, it would be an improvement.
Exactly.
Yeah. I also think one of the takeaways every time I've done a race like this, one of the takeaways is that the more you can train your aerobic capacity, the better off you're going to be it'll be way less miserable. So I think you could get by as a runner without doing a lot of the weight training way better than you could if you do the weight training and don't run. Because for us, every time you had to run after each workout, like that was our recovery. Our heart rate actually probably went down.
And that's actually our weakness right now. Is like if we wanted to be the best at this, I see the pathway to it.
There's a lot of
time
running
on the track.
A lot of VO2 max work.
Like
And
strength wise, we're there. I would say outside of maybe the row, we'd have to get
Well,
stronger.
it would be
every other exercise we are good enough at. We would just have to get better.
It's not even just not getting faster at running. It's getting good at running on really tired legs because you're like you can't even feel them. Like especially
I don't know
after
for me though. For me, it's my heart. It's my lungs. It's literally like I'm like my legs can handle the speed.
For me, it's like especially after row, lunges, sleds, I feel like I have to get feeling.
Yeah, but that's because you don't do enough of those things.
Right. So I think if I practiced doing like what I did today, my workout was like a kilometer, then I did like wall balls, then I did a kilometer, then I did heavy lunges, and like each kilometer it was practicing like being fast after having done strength training. So I think that's another way we can improve. We didn't train like that. So
what was the hardest part of of this specific race?
Hardest part, like the hardest workout.
No, just the hardest overall thing you dealt with.
It's really just like for the workouts that you have to do, it's wanting to quit on the workouts. So that's the nice part about doubles, because you can quit and then the other person can take over. But I knew I didn't want to I wanted to at least give it enough so that it was like I was doing my part and contributing and doing those burpees or doing like it's hard. It's a hard race. Physically and mentally.
I think the hardest part was the night before.
Oh. No, I mean I really don't think so. He's referring to the fact that I didn't sleep at all the night before. We had just talked on our pre-race video about how we picked this Airbnb with the best conditions, and it was a good Airbnb. I can't deny it. But for whatever reason, the bed was comfy and everything. I just could not sleep. And normally when I can't sleep, it's because there's things on my mind and I can't quiet my mind. But this time I was pretty calm. It was literally just such a restless, those nights when you just keep turning over and turning over. And I felt like every time I would turn, you would be annoyed with me and wake up and be like, can you please get comfortable and stop moving? And then I think the other factor was that Aiden was in our room and he was already asleep, and I really didn't want to wake him up. So I ended up just going downstairs and sleeping on the couch. I say sleeping, but I didn't sleep. And then
Her Whoop tracked 3 hours of
yeah,
sleep.
it was from 3 to 6. So for perspective, I think we went up to bed at 10. And I was up from 10 to 3, just sitting there thinking. And yeah, so I performed pretty well on 3 hours of sleep.
The
And
reason I brought that up is I wanted to dive in a little bit of again, when we're talking holistic performance, there's so many factors that go into it. And the fact that you were running on such low sleep and you performed at the capacity that you did, that just goes to show how capable the human body is.
yeah,
If
and
you train it to be capable.
you can't read into it too much. I could have been oh my God, I have the worst recovery. I'm going to perform terrible. But if you just go into it and you're this is what it is, I'm going to perform my best. And
Now, on the other end of that, I had 6 or less hours of sleep and I was in the red, but I didn't even check on race days. I don't check my Whoop or my Aura ring uh, for my recovery. I don't allow any negativity to come into my mind because I don't want to
you don't want your
about it
brain to be
over.
yeah.
Even though I don't generally think like that anyway, like today, I've been struggling with a stomach bug and I was in the red, but I don't wake up and be like, oh, my day's going to be shitty because I'm in the red. But when you're going into a race, you want to keep your mind clear and on the objective at hand. And that's where any little thing that comes in to your mind can cloud it. So I didn't look till after the race, and we both were still able to perform at a high level regardless of the recovery. And I think that just goes into our everyday life. Like days leading up to it, we were making sure that we're recovered and rested. I think that's another reason why we didn't really sleep that well, is we were 3 or 4 days from running and really working out.
Oh yeah, it took too many rest days.
Literally, we were just charged.
It's crazy how I feel if I don't work out. The days I take rest days are hard because then I'm not tired enough to go to sleep. So
I mean, that's a whole nother topic in a video that we go on. I think a lot of people out there struggle to sleep because they're not exerting themselves. Right? And then if you add in caffeine and sugar and all the other processed things that we're eating on a daily basis, unfortunately, that's what the world is providing. That's where that comes from. But you said on the last episode and prior to that, speaking with me, that that might have been your last HYROX. How are you feeling now after?
I said it, and then after that race, I was like, no, I really like the environment. Actually, I think I told you when we walked in. The cool thing is HYROX has grown so much over the last couple of years. I think they got a bunch of funding. Maybe they got bought by a different
There,
firm. Anyway, there's been a lot of money invested into making the experience amplified since we first started it. It was good when we first started it, but now there's just a lot more hype around it. There's like vendors everywhere, a lot more people are doing it. DJ, lights, music, like the arena setup is a cool experience. And I don't know, I grew up competitive dancing my whole life, like from grade school to high school, and then danced in college non-competitively, but always in those arenas it just never felt like I would always get like a bug in my stomach, like it was anxiety producing. Even though I loved performing, it just there was always like anxiety around like competitions and stuff. This was a competition in a sense, and I felt nothing but like this is what I'm meant to do. Like this feels like my lane. And I that was that and running races, I have a similar feeling. It's just like nothing feels like people could get nervous about it, but I feel so at peace when it's, I don't know how else to describe it. I'm like, this is what I live for. It makes me feel alive. Being there and like the marathon and those kind of events just are really awesome experiences in my opinion. So that was a takeaway. And I thought about how I said I didn't want to do another one. And part of that was because it's like, how many of these do I need to do? And to our earlier conversation, if I do one again, it doesn't necessarily have to be to like beat our time or like continue to compete or get any specific outcome. I think the reason why I would do it again is because the more I do this, the more other people see that I'm doing this, and that might inspire them to try it. And what I really hope is that more women are open-minded to try things like this. And in this last race in particular, it was really awesome to see actually a whole wave of women from our Austin community signed up to do women's doubles. And I think a lot of them felt the similar feeling of like, wow, I feel like a badass. That was really a cool experience. And so I think the more people that do it, the more that spreads to other people. And that's such a positive thing. So if I were to do it again, it's for that reason.
I would add in that what does it do from a mental standpoint? Like if you ask like if I want
Yeah,
to keep doing these races, like I think one of the things you've done in the past is put the pressure on yourself of having to be the best at something, which highly competitive and ambitious people do. But the reality is like doing one of these a year can add value to every year of your life, like for the rest of your life in my eyes. So it doesn't have to be something where you're constantly leveling up to try and beat your time. It can literally just be something that you put on the map every year just as something to do for fun and mentally feel that feeling to improve your everyday life.
yeah.
Anything else you want to dive into before we wrap?
No, I just think like high rocks could be intimidating, but if you zoom out as a whole on what the race itself actually entails, it's a really sustainable approach to all around fitness. It keeps your running and endurance in check, and the fitness workouts that are required for the race are things you can do with minimal equipment. You don't have to be, I mean, you want to make sure that you're doing things with correct form, but it's nothing that's super inaccessible to the everyday person if you have access to weights of some sort. So I think it's a great way to keep yourself in good fitness and shape and endurance and heart health in check. You don't have to crush yourself by doing super intense workouts, but if you are able to complete a race, whatever time, you're already doing great. So I think it's a really good mix of all the things that go into overall physical fitness and longevity. And more people should be working out with those principles in mind.
Yeah, I think that,
Like I wish our family would train in that way.
yeah, I think the best thing that I would say anybody can do is really sign up for a race, not even just a HYROX race. Sign up for something that's going to challenge you to train, eat better, surround yourself with a better community. If you put something on the calendar, you're going to be forced to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I going to be prepared for this thing? Yes or no? And naturally, as humans, we don't want to show up and look stupid. So if you put something on the calendar, you're going to do something about preparing for it. And that's really what improves our lives, is when you do that. And the next thing that I would also ask is, if you have done a HYROX, so you have done races, ask a friend or family member to do them with you. Remember that it's not just about your time, what you're getting. One of the best things that I did last year was ask a buddy of mine to run 50K ultra with me, and it was a fun class. Like it was great. It was an experience I'll never forget. And now him and I are talking about like what's the next thing that we could do together. And that's really why I love HYROX, is with this doubles. I literally was talking to somebody in the DMs today like about running a race with him. So you have the ability to level up together and to have these experiences with other people that will last an entire lifetime. And that's something that is priceless. So if you're deciding to sign up for races this year, 2024 or beyond, please let us know. We'd love to connect and maybe join you in those experiences. If you have new experiences that you think are cool or you're trying to drive traffic to, let us know. Until next time, drive on.